Okay, I think let me start over. So, hi everybody, Tim and Tara show here today, and I was late today. So if you logged in for the Monday course, I was going through a blizzard, frantically trying to get to Portland, and I am here now in my hotel room for the Oregon Wine Symposium for the next couple days. We've been having a, a real storm event, like so many places in the country, and so we got here. So. I just got done explaining a lot of things without the recording being on, so I'm going to repeat them. Tara sent me some questions, and so we're going to go through a couple of those, and then also your other classmate, Jackie Bowman, sent some questions that I want to go through. And I really just, I want to have everybody really get I make myself available for a phone call to to address questions in these classes, to do it one-on-one like we're going to do, or just simply send me an email with some things you might like covered or questions you have. There are no questions that are too simple, and there's nothing that's too complex. And if it gets really complex, I might request that we do it one-on-one. But so many times the questions that you might have are the questions that many people, not only in the course, but in this industry have. So I really relish it. It's an important part of the course for me. And Tara and I are going to jam away on this. So again, take it away, Tara.
Yeah, so part of what I had emailed you around is why I'm taking the class and what I'm hoping to get out of it. And for me, it's a little bit different probably than many people taking the course, because I really have zero background in wine outside of, liking to go to wine country and do the visits and become a, expert for a minute and then forget it all when I go home. But I have a very traditional business background and, work with a lot of the for-profit companies, do a lot of turnarounds across all the areas of business, but it's just not an area that is something I want to stay in forever. So I love the concept of a winery working both, with business, a product, and the outdoors, and having that kind of Mother Nature element to it. But I always hear you can't make money in the wine industry. And, it's a good way to make a small fortune and start with a big one. So that's why I wanted to take the course, to figure out, is there a way to make money? What are the different models? Where might the opportunity be? And sort of where are things moving going forward?
Perfect. So one of the things that I want to start, I'll start calling this out more and more, which is the very simplistic business plan template that you all got by email, and you can also get it to the site. If you can't find it, let me know. Here's what I know about the wine industry. It is really complex. It is a market where I don't know of any other consumer product that ranges from $3.99 to $39,000 for a product. Mm-hmm. On top of that, you go into a store, there's several hundred to several thousand selections. The number of products available is mind-boggling. In the US, it's over 100,000. I don't know of any other consumer product that has so many iterations, so many variations. Mm-hmm. So part of the complexity of the wine business is the complexity of the product and the range and scope of products. The other thing is that I honestly don't know of any program other than university level, or you have to enroll and whatever, that teaches just simply from the beginning to the end, what's the supply chain, what's the value chain, how does this all work, and so that you can actually explore what kind of business opportunities are out there. And the reason for taking this class, I've had over 1,000 people take this class, and it's for every reason under the sun. And I would say the vast majority of people actually taking the course are because they want to go into the wine business. They're in the wine business and they want to improve what they're doing, and they don't even know where to begin in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So Jackie Bowman and I had a conversation earlier today, and I told her I'd be sharing her questions. And it was very similar to the same thing. And as we go through then systematically through the supply chain, hopefully you've got a better idea of there's quite a range of options over and above the idea that you've got to plant a vineyard and build the winery and equip it and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I suggest for everybody is you've got the business plan template that I want you to do for turning in at the end of the class. And I don't grade them. I don't go through them in detail. I see that you did the work or not, and you get credit if you turn it in, and you don't if you don't. All right. Now, anybody that does want to speak on a more detailed level or that kind of stuff, I'm not a consultant for you, but I will be glad to review, your plans and what you want to do at the end of the course as well. So not only at various points along the way, and the way so you can have the business plan that you're working on for a product, but it might be your dream product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a passion, you can have a brand and a label and marketing and sales and not own a winery. You can do it with bulk wine. You can do it with shiners. You can have stuff custom crushed, and there's a number of different ways to approach the market. If that's what you envision is actually being a brand owner, then you can say, okay, well, if I'm doing a SWOT analysis for my winery, do I have or can I raise the funds necessary to do the whole shebang?
Mm-hmm.
Which, depending on where you're looking, I'm actually doing a winery search for a client in China right now who wants to buy a winery in Australia. And there's all sorts of, it's pennies on the dollar to what you would pay in California.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to Napa, unless you're a tech baby that got some windfall and you were the CFO for Facebook or something like that, it's virtually impossible. But there's so many other awesome areas in Oregon and Washington, up and down California, in Virginia, in North Carolina, and so one of the challenges is start a separate vision, mission, and goals for what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What you see
Mm-hmm.
yourself doing, and if it's actually being out in a vineyard and doing all those things. One of the reasons it's so easy to lose money in this industry is people do not apply business best practices and business common sense when they get in the wine business. Mm-hmm. So they have some starry-eyed idea that they're going to be the vintner and they're going to do all these things, and they never did a real thorough marketing plan. They mm-hmm. created a product and thinking, I'm going to make my wine unique and do all these things, but they never did a competitive analysis to actually see what they're competing against and what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They never took the time to look at their own personal allocation of time and resources so that their vision, which might have been, my vision is to own a winery and a brand and to go around promoting it, to have events at the winery, to go out and nurture and sing to the vines and all this. And then they find out that they're still on an airplane even twice as much as the job that they left that they hated, and that they're dealing with red tape and environmental impact reports because they had no clue what they were getting into. And so what they thought they would be doing in the wine industry has no basis for what they end up doing. And so then they have to start to hire out to do those things and hadn't planned for it appropriately. And it just becomes a money pit. And even 1,000 cases of wine, if you look at it in the scope of things in production, that's a small amount of wine until you own it and have to figure out how to sell it, and you didn't plan for it.
Yeah.
So the other thing is the wine industry has an awful lot of people who need people who are business experts.
Yeah.
That know the best practices, that know how to create, that know how to do turnarounds. And there are graduates of this program. One person who's got a legal consultancy in Northern Virginia, and had no clue that she could leverage her Washington, D.C. legal experience, turn it to becoming a specialist for the wine industry for all sorts of legal areas, from grape contracts to employment terms and conditions. How do you attract and keep a really qualified winemaker? Because they don't want to make wine for you. They want to use you as their stepping stone to something bigger.
Yeah.
And it's just like what's going on in restaurants with chefs. And so she's working on the legal things and the ways that she can solve problems for people in the wine industry. And guess what? That Monday through Thursday or Friday travel is in the wine country.
Yeah.
And meeting with people and sitting down with them and not having to take on their problems, but actually being the one that's helping them find the solutions for the problems. So anytime you hear a cliche like the only way to make a large fortune in the wine industry is start with a small one, if you apply critical thinking, then you could think, so I wonder what kind of opportunity that creates for someone like me, or for a new services company or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So the Wine Biz Sim workbooks, I'm going to be uploading a new cost of good ones. Learn to just be able to plug numbers in. You know, don't sweat the details on it. Say, I wonder if I wanted to make a $100 Cabernet and do 1,000 cases, you know, and then all of a sudden you're going to see a gross margin that gives them a lot of money for marketing. The differential between the cost of production of $100 or $150 bottle of wine and of a $15 bottle of wine sometimes isn't all that great.
Yeah.
So it's just the messaging and the marketing and the positioning. And we all know that somebody gives you, me, even the greatest tasters in the world 6 wines, and you may pick out the cheapest wine as the most expensive and this and that. So part of the other thing that makes the wine business so hard is the hyperbole. Oh, this wine has massive in here to here. So learn to play that and listen to that and look at the Parker scores or the Spectator, or listen to the sommeliers and take the wine classes, but become a cynical business person and say, well, you know what? Here's the wine industry looking for what's the next big thing, and 15 years ago, nobody was looking at Moscato as the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what was the next big thing, not Riesling, not Rosé. And Moscato still blows Rosé out of the water categorically. And so,
how much of,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, how much of that is driven by a really big producer or umbrella company or brand pushing it through marketing, as opposed to like people just discover it and preferences just change?
So we're and I hate to do this to you, but we're going to go through why preferences change at the end of the course.
Oh, okay.
And it's not because your palate changes.
And then the other question, yeah, the other question I had, because I was playing around with the COGS simulator a bit, but I always come down to, it's a bit of a risk profile, and like, do you believe, let's say you want to sell 20,000 bottles, let's just say, and that's like what you've built your model around, but then turns out you sell 5,000. And do you dump the rest? Like, do you just kind of, what's your mitigate? And how often does that happen? Like, how often are you generally able to sell like 80% of your plan, or is there just no telling and it can vary year over year pretty widely?
Again, it just gets down to sound principles of understanding the market, understanding your positioning against the competition, looking at and this is really hard to do, but it's absolutely critical. Who is your customer? And on a really, really fine level, are you familiar with developing personas or personification of customers?
Is it a way of segmenting?
Yeah, and it's used in the tech industry
a
huge amount.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, go ahead.
So let's take millennials, and this is also going to get into Jackie's question number 2. So I'm going to mash you guys up. Millennial consumers, I sent out some articles, and there's a lot of evidence that they're just not buying in to the wine game. What makes it even harder with millennials is that there are so many industry cheerleaders. And what I mean by that, they're the, oh, rah, the wine industry is great. We're everybody's fine. Don't worry, we're growth. And then all of a sudden, boom. And it's like, what happened? And that's because a lot of people are actually paid to conduct research and to present a false front of everything's okay and growth and whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's all these questions about what's the next big thing? What's the wine and tech? What's the innovation? Here's what I think, and you can read many other articles. There's many. The next big thing does not lie with the product. There's a flavor profile, there's a price, there's unbelievable diversity of product. There's blue bottles, clear bottles, Tetra Paks, kegs, cans, milk cartons, you name it. It's not the difference between a screw cap or a beeswax or hemp closure versus a cork or whatever. It's the next big thing is, who are consumers? How do I smartly segment the market? And then how do I connect with them? And so this is where then the tech comes in. How do I reach them? How do I talk to them? How do I build their trust? So if you take consumers or millennials, like, oh, I'm going to do this for the millennial market, it's just you know, take the poop and throw it against the wall. That's all you're doing. It's because it's millions and millions of personas.
Yeah.
So an example of personifications, I've mentioned I have 2 millennials. Chase is 34, just turned 34, lives in San Diego, works for Tesla Solar, Mr. Salesman, Mr. Bling. His wife is just absolutely adorable. They have their first baby, and their whole life is looking good. You know, living the life. If Chase needs to buy a fishing rod, he'll spend $1,000. I don't get that. I don't understand that. But if you start to think of him as representative, as a subcategory, as a segment of the millennial market, he shops at certain places. He values organics. He values sustainable and biodiversity, and so if he, and if there's enough of him and his wife to go after, then you've got a chance. But if you're just trying to say, I'm doing this because millennials will respond, you know, it's like saying, oh, I'm doing this because people drive cars. Oh, great. A lot of different cars, a lot of different price ranges, a lot of different features. You've really got to do some more homework. Now, my other millennial son, Landon, is an electrical engineer. He's absolutely brilliant, kind of out of touch with some reality a bit, and he knows it, and he's fine. He's Sheldon from The Big Bang. And last time he was over at our house, he had this really nice jacket on. I said, where'd you get that jacket? He said, oh, my girlfriend got it out of a dumpster.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Well, what happens is around UC Davis, apparently very wealthy groups of people get stuff and so his girlfriend was walking by a dumpster, and there was this beautiful piece of luggage. It was brand new. She opens it up and it was filled with all these nice clothes. But
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't value what our other millennial values. He has no basis for the amount of money they spend and whatever. And both of them are happy as hell. They're smart. They're successful. But if you think millennial is one thing, you're screwed. Because you've got to be able to drill down deeper into the behaviors. Where do they shop? What are they looking for? What are the key terms? And what they're probably not going to respond to is, oh, the silky essence of boysenberry and olala berries with this they don't give a crap.
Yeah.
They want something that tastes good. They want it on their terms. They want to enjoy it with the food they eat. And they don't need our stuff. And that's both of the sons, but they're both hugely different in their behaviors and attitudes.
Yeah.
So a big challenge of the industry is and the biggest breakthrough I know of is really going to be is, how do we talk to the market? How do we understand the market? What can we do to engage them that they feel it's actually about them? Because more categorically, that's what, if you are to take a generalizations, millennials do want it to be about them. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually really interesting because it somewhat closely relates to work I just did on my last case for a different industry. But it's this thing that my company does called demand-centric growth. And it's a way of segmenting customer demand and consumer demand based on the occasion rather than the consumer. Yeah, and so you pull together.
The occasion. Okay, sorry.
Occasion. Yeah, it's interesting because you pull it together across, you do a big consumer survey and you get their emotional drivers, the functional drivers, and then the technical drivers. And you kind of correlate it all together, and you end up with, 8 to 12 different demand spaces that could be the exact same person, right? But that person, when they are on a date, looks for something else than the person who's out with a group of girlfriends. And, like you need to message things very uniquely for each of those occasions.
Now, as a heads up, the wine industry over occasionalizes the product. If you're in
What do you mean?
if you're in the sparkling wine or champagne business,
Yeah.
80% of your sales happen in 3 months.
New Year's, December.
October, November, December, OND it's called. And that's a horrible, horrible occasionalization of a product.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's over occasionalized.
Yeah.
Do you believe in wine and food pairing?
No, because you told me not to.
It's over occasionalization.
Yeah.
So if you made an intense red wine and somebody's having friends over and having fried chicken or grilling shrimp, or wouldn't you want them to drink your wine?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it goes with meat, or it's best with this, and they're vegetarians, then I guess you forget all that. We have no idea the damage we do. And this is pertinent because we're talking about marketing and market channels and marketing best practices. What the wine industry is doing today is absolutely insanity. It is the worst possible confluence of bad marketing ideas that the beer industry could ever wish upon us, even though they're starting to do the same things.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance, yes, for occasions and so on, but finding that core driver that actually hits. If you occasionalize it, then you create occasional sales. I mean,
yeah.
Linguistically, that's what you're doing. Do you love salt?
I love salt.
I know. I can tell just from your behaviors. And yeah, but here's what no one's ever told you before. Did you know that that's actually the #1 sign of having the most taste buds? Now you'll
Loving
have to
salt?
Yeah, because you're so it correlates to also why you find tags irritating in your clothes, and you're a little OCD in your closet. Do you space your hangers?
It's too full to space them, but my closet is very well organized. Yeah.
Yeah, and color coded and that. So so this all relates to your love of salt, by the way. And the fact that if somebody washes, if your clothes get washed in the wrong detergent or fabric softener, the smell is sometimes for you so strong you might have to rewash your clothes. That ever happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you. And you're really sensitive to bitterness.
Yeah.
And you want things to be really rich and smooth, and so you've got your parameters that are based on your genetics, your psychology, your neurology. And we don't even look at that. If somebody loves Moscato, I was just checking in, and Yuki, and it's somebody who's studying for the Master of Wine examination, who's taken this course, Yuki Sato, that I brought to mind, and I told her that. And I took her through this whole thing, and I asked her what wine she loved, and she said, I don't like wine. And I said, come on, you like sweet wine, don't you? And she goes, yes. And she loves Moscato.
Yeah.
And the wine industry has told her she's not a wine drinker, she doesn't count.
Yeah.
She's a beginner, she's entry level, she's naive.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, she's trailer trash. That's what we say about my mother-in-law, who's a millionaire, who did pro tour golf, who's a PhD in economics. She loves White Zinfandel.
Yeah.
So consider, you're not going to learn about the wine market from wine marketing people.
Yeah.
Look to solid business practices. Look to ways to slice and dice things in a unique and novel way, and maybe abandon wine and food pairing unless somebody expresses a sincere that I really want to do this, and there's some people that are. But what's happening is we're imposing our will and a lot of bad information on millions of consumers day in, day out, such that they'd rather say they don't like wine than actually tell you what they like.
Yeah.
So it's, and this gets to Jackie's question number 3. A number of articles are all talking about the wine industry's craving and ripe for innovation. It used to be, if you wanted to operate a computer, there was a special code. It's called DOS.
DOS. I remember DOS.
Did you used to do that? Did you love it?
I hated it.
I know it.
Yeah.
90% of all the people that ever had to use a computer hated it.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, oh, I know, wait a minute. I've got a mouse. And here's a picture of a folder. So instead of C, do you know the code for opening a folder? It's like C:\/ blah, blah, this whole thing. Look, click, I'm computing. And honestly, the computing industry, the people who were the computing geeks and experts did not want Windows and the graphic user interface in general to succeed, because they felt it would rob them of their authority and power. So the innovation next for wine is not coming from a place that you can actually look at, again, with another product, or this in the vineyard, or this closure, or this or that. It's really, really got to be something much more disruptive. And you're familiar with disruptive innovation?
Yeah.
And that's a positive thing. It's finding some underlying need that you can make people look smart and then feel confident. And now you can go into a restaurant where they say, oh, the chef has had us take all the salt off because he knows better what you should like. And you could say, you morons, how ignorant can you be? You don't know that
what it tastes like to me.
Right, or that the quality you're actually looking for is bitter suppression. It's not really the salt you crave, it's the way it suppresses bitterness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
I know it. And this is the hard part about what's the next big innovation. It doesn't come from what we already know.
Right.
It's what we don't know we don't know.
Yeah.
So think that in you're looking for a career. For any of you who are looking to open a winery, are looking for a new job, or your first job, or improving your job in the industry and becoming better at the business, learn business fundamentals. Don't think that wine is some product that's on an island all alone by itself, and that there's so much that we can learn from technology, from other consumer packaged goods, from neuromarketing. Are you familiar with neuromarketing and what's going on there? And they actually look it up.
Yeah.
And see how they're getting actually into the heads, and that this is what gaming is about. The gaming industry spends billions of dollars on neurological research to keep my son, who thank God has now turned his attention to a real job in electrical engineering, but the gaming industry spent untold amounts of money so that he would have these little releases of endorphins and adrenaline and serotonin in his bloodstream, so that it keeps him in. Come on, Landon, come on, it's time to go to school. Just a minute, he's got to get to that next level. He's got to have that.
Yeah.
And the wine industry, all we do is mock consumers. We make fun of them and so forth. And that's why so many wineries fail. So
Okay.
long answer to your question.
No, good.
Yeah. And then there's other things. It's really fun to do case studies. Jackie had asked me, why did Amazon leave the wine industry?
Mm-hmm.
So Amazon had a big push, the Amazon marketplace and wine and this and that. And they actually left the wine industry because when they acquired Whole Foods,
Mm-hmm.
they became owners of stores and owners of liquor licenses.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had a conflict of permitting, so that they couldn't own Whole Foods and operate and maintain the licenses for wine and beer and
Mm-hmm.
run their online business. So they decided to go ahead and shelve the online business for now, because now they've got over 200 Whole Foods store distribution points.
Right.
So they're going to be back in the wine business, but it's going to be a whole different way, and a lot of wine companies are going to be blindsided by it.
Yeah.
So that was and Jackie's guess was that they were waiting for the regulations to change and so on, but it really was a permitting, a licensing conflict, that they couldn't hold licenses to conduct their online business on a national level and own stores that had a physical liquor or wine sales area in it.
So that's interesting though. Does that mean that the model they would have to pursue is that for any given, they essentially turn each Whole Foods location into a distribution center, and for a certain radius around that store?
Or even nationally, there's once you actually find out what the real reason is, your business mind can start running.
Mm-hmm.
So what if they had a Whole Foods market that took you to a Whole Foods in your state,
right?
And then that they had some sort of a fulfillment configuration and could even do same day delivery to you of your wine.
Yeah.
And then where legal, have a consolidated online that ships to states where they don't have stores yet, or whatever. Yeah. So now they get to sit back and totally rethink their strategy and how they're going to innovate, and part of that was shutting down the online business for a bit.
Yeah. Learn something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully that's the value of these questions. Like, what happened to this? Or seeing something in the store and taking a picture and just asking the question, what's going on, and then also, let's see. So your second part of your question was deciding what is the opportunity in wine, traditional or otherwise, right? One of my graduates from this class, I think I've mentioned, is opening an organic dandelion winery and an urban winery in Brooklyn, New York.
No, well, you might have mentioned it in one of the classes I missed. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, and it's called Dandy Wines, and really smart lady, and she knows it's a limited kind of thing, but she's actually, because she's going to have a permitted winery and tasting room, she can do events. she'll sell other wines and beer and so on. So she's not over specialized or over occasionalized. And
Right.
and she's working with dandelion growers and helping some of them go organic and get certified to be able to supply for her needs and for what she's doing. And the wines are awesome.
That's awesome.
They're not going to be, yeah. So so that's a fun thing to research. And she's really good with PR also. There was a great article written about what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so you had a question about distressed acquisition opportunities. Is that for like wineries?
Yeah, it'd be for wineries. I come from an entrepreneurial family, so I've always thought I would just start my own business. But then in business school, actually, it became apparent that buying an existing operation makes a lot more sense in terms of just knowing what you've got and what you can improve. But I would imagine, given how many people try to get into wine, get out, fail for different reasons, there would be distressed acquisition opportunities, but I just don't know how you find them.
So the way you find them is to start to call, and you can find this in Wine Business Monthly and Wine Industry Network and even the Wine Spectator. You'll find people who specialize in real wine real estate transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife's a principal broker and was one of the most successful real estate brokers in Napa. And we did winery and vineyard transactions.
Yeah.
And virtually everyone that she was involved in was what's called a pocket listing or the whisper market. Are you familiar with those terms? So for anybody in class who doesn't know, these are where the business does not want it advertised that the business is for sale.
Yeah.
So you start calling around and saying, I'm looking for an opportunity, and that's literally what I'm doing in Australia right now, is tapping into the whisper market, because when you put up the winery for sale, and if you've got the brand somewhat established and you've got a winemaker and a tasting room and a wine club, you don't want all of a sudden your winemaker going, crap, I better start looking for a job.
Right.
Obviously we're in trouble and it's being sold and so forth. So, and exactly as you say, there's all sorts of distressed opportunities of people that it was a great idea up until that they found out they're on the road more than they were before. They're, instead of out there singing to the vines and nurturing and getting their hands dirty, riding their horses, through the vines. That's what you want to be doing. You see that vision, right?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Last time my wife did that, she broke her leg right behind Mustard's Grill. But that's another story. So you just start to speculate your vision, your mission, your goals. How do I get there? Go through the parts of normal business planning. Okay, what funds can I put together? Can I do fundraising? How much could I raise? And and kind of start kicking tires and seeing what's out there.
And are there? I know we're probably close to time, but are there investors, either, not so much private, more so institutionalized to some extent, even if very small? Are there wine specific investment groups?
Yes. And one of the first places to start, you've seen some stuff by Silicon Valley Bank. I posted, they did a workshop for tasting rooms and so on. Go look at their services and what they do.
Okay.
And there's also sort of covert investment groups of some of the smartest people in the business. Do you know the winery Kosta Browne?
I don't think so.
They're a Pinot Noir producer, and several years ago they hit the jackpot. They were literally ready to go out of business, and their Pinot Noir became the Wine Spectator #1 wine of the year.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were selling 90% of their wines from a mailing list. And if you go back through, we'll be talking about wine club versus mailing list, but mailing list is the holy grail. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And they were approached by one of these investment brain trusts, and got a $40 million cash infusion into their business.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, is you can start one way. Screaming Eagle, you've heard of Screaming Eagle?
Mm-hmm.
They started in a custom crush facility. There was no winery.
Mm-hmm.
And
it can evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So business is business, and simply, and the things you got to be aware of. And I want to hit Jackie's last question here, and this is kind of how things work in the wine industry. Every nonprofit organization, and when you live in the Napa Valley, the pressure is absolutely horrendous. Can you give us a case for this? We'll let you sponsor this dinner if you give us free wine, and all of this kind of stuff. And so finding strategic partnerships, both in a funding and in a business sense, seeing if maybe there's something that you're doing currently. An awful lot of people think, oh, if I want a job at the winery, I've got to have my certificates and my diplomas and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is, wineries are looking for marketing people who know marketing, and then they can teach them about wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost impossible to teach wine people anything, because they're so full of it. Is, I mean, it just is. We're like this. And so sommeliers who can't actually run a business or help the restaurant achieve their goals, people who are brought into marketing, who are really knowledgeable about wine, that don't know a damn thing about marketing, or even worse, a salesperson who's so passionate about wine, holds all these credentials, but doesn't know how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And you can teach somebody how to sell about wine much more easily than you can take a wine geek and teach them how to sell.
Yeah.
So look at your own strengths. Start to just slowly, under your vision, mission, and goals, just put a list of things. I could be doing this, or maybe it could be this. Don't decide yet. And through the end of this course, hopefully you'll have a roadmap, so that you can call me down the road and say, oh, by the way, Tim, I'm doing this, or I never thought I'd be doing that, or I own my own winery, because that's why I do this course. I just love it, and helping people kind of break this apart to understand how it works.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Cool. All right, class. Well, there we go. That's our time.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for being persistent and getting into the classroom. Talk to you all.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.